the highest bidder. With the Maccabean revolt, okay, which is another whole story, Maccabees, you got to understand that, what happened, okay? As Israel is continuing, the Gentile nations are pounding down on them because of their disobedience, and they're losing more and more of their sonship rights and their wealth and their status and everything, okay? But anyways, Jonathan is a great story though in Maccabees where God a reprieve. There was a great deliverer rose up and pushed back. This is the time of Maccabees and Antigonus, oh my gosh, the quote unquote the Antichrist, just back at that time. Okay, he was just okay. Anyways, but what happened was he usurped the high priesthood. Well, actually, he didn't usurp it. They lost in the end, this whole revolt. They got taken over again by the Greeks or the Romans. I mean, I get lost in this history a little bit too. Anyways, the Seleucid emperor put into the high priesthood for the Feast of Booths to kind of keep, basically throwing a bone, trying to keep civil peace. He gave it to this lineage of Jonathan, okay, which... Now what that did, and promoted a military and civil governor of Judea, but this priesthood was the final straw in the back, which totally sealed off the true lineage of the priesthood that was coming down into total usurpers, because power, once you get a little taste of it, it's very hard to give it up. That's what's amazing. I mean, just how we could have people be thankful we could just have this huge transfer of power. And okay, we gripe and moan and we yell at each other, but honest, we did it. That's like, you have no idea how much we've kind of like grown up, so to speak. Oh my gosh, praise God. Under the Hasmoneans, there were 8 high priests and kings who took this title, and then the last king priest was replaced by Herod the Great. He was an Idumean. This is like constantly... And at this point, by the time Jesus came, the high priesthood was totally at the disposal of the sovereign. He could appoint and dismiss him at caprice, and it really went to the highest bidder, the wealthiest families in Judea. I mean, it was a mess. It was a total carnage mess, okay? But the Essenes, seeing this is why they went out in the desert. This is the thing. They're like, oh my gosh, we can't even deal with you people in Jerusalem anymore. You are totally off the track, shipwrecked, and you don't even know. I mean, you're just like all... I mean, you can understand because why Jesus called them vipers. I mean, he said so many stern words to these people because he's like... Okay, I'll get there. But the reason why the Essenes objected so much was because they finally, for political means, put this combination of the 2 roles, king and priest, together in one role. And truly that much power that can only be handled by the real Yeshua, the real Messiah, okay? It was always kind of understood that these things should be tracking a little bit separately because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Okay, so the thing is, the Essenes believed these high priests in Jerusalem were usurpers. They were only concerned with wealth and power. That's the story of the Sadducees. It's factual. They called them prostitutes and fornicators. I mean, very strong words, but when you understand what's going on, absolutely accurate, like nailed them. Jesus had trouble with the sanctity of the temple. See, this is what gets into the whole thing, why they considered the temple unclean, what Herod was doing. I mean, it was just a mess, okay? He tried to cleanse the money changers, which is a prophetic act, which really in 3 days he was dead, basically. But he claimed, that they could destroy his body, but in 3 days he would rebuild the temple, which is actually a fact because it refers to the 3,000 years. It's... that's what he's referring to, the spiritual temple. We're not talking about building a temple in 3 days. He's talking the 3,000 years since he will have totally, completely, it's amazing. Okay, now, so that gives, so the Essenes believed in this dual messiahs, one who was anointed to Israel and so they kind of had these names. He was the anointed of Israel. He was the priestly Messiah. And this is why it's important in Hebrews in the New Testament, while they're trying to explain to people why Yeshua is the new high priest and what God did with this, why he changed up this priesthood kind of understanding from the Levitical priesthood, Aaron, to Melchizedek. Now that's another, because I'm going to basically unpack all these when we get over to the priesthood and why understanding what the difference between the priesthood of Aaron and Melchizedek and this whole priesthood thing, and basically how they've been scattered among the 12 tribes while he did this. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to understand there. But basically back here, sticking with the house of Judah, the condition they were in when Messiah came, okay, the first time. So he is, let's see, according to Zechariah, they shared power between the monarchy and the priesthood. And this is where in the power structure, this thing where the king kind of, this is why Messiah, the kingship, because they couldn't have a king, kind of lost power. It lost a little steam. And the priesthood was picking up power and steam because it's the one thing they could kind of keep going through the centuries. But unfortunately, it was a corrupt priesthood, and it wasn't the bloodline priesthood, okay? So that gives a lot of the story in the backdrop to Yeshua and his lineage and why it was important to prove that he was of the Davidic line and the different, it just, everything makes sense when you kind of understand these bigger picture things that are going on, especially in the history. But what they knew, what is unknown, they knew that the Davidic Messiah ben David, was going to be a restorer of Israel, but they were only interested in the Messiah, the Messiah ben David, okay, because this is my rub with the Jews. So I guess if anyone's, because both of us, Paul makes it very clear, the two houses, we're both under partial blindness, okay? The Gentiles don't really understand who they are, okay? The lost sheep and Gentiles, okay, and I'm going to unpack those things because there's 4 groups that you have to understand how the Bible uses these groups and the words. The Jews, which is always refers to the house of Judah, the Israel, which refers to the 10 scattered tribes, okay, in the prophets, okay, because we're way past the split, okay, the split has happened, okay, so, Jacob gave his name of Israel to Ephraim, became the lead tribe of the 10 tribes who were scattered, so now biblically, Israel refers to the scattered 10 tribes, it's done, okay, so that's how they're using the word. Okay, now when and there you can understand how when they're using all Israel, all 12, the prophets are very clear. They have very clear ways of how they let you know in context if they're talking all 12, if they're using Israel for just the house of Israel. And I've been through a lot of this in my teachings. Okay, then you have to understand the Gentiles. Who are the Gentiles? Because we live in technically the time of the Gentiles, right? So it'd be nice to know who the Bible's talking about when it talks about Gentiles. And then you have the heathen. And so I'm going to pack all these groups. The heathen we'll get to last because, nobody can write this story. This has got to come down from you. It's amazing. But anyways, okay. Now when the boys get their blessings, things like, Levi gets 4 verses of blessing. Joseph gets 5 verses and 2 separate blessings, okay? He gets the blessings of the sun and the moon and the firstborn, or the bull. Why is, because we have to understand, okay, the birthright. We haven't been to unpack this one, okay? So, but one thing that's very clear, and I want to say this again about the Essenes. The Essenes were keeping it straight. Now, because history is written by the victors, and because when you study out your history, you'll find out, especially when the Jews, the house of Judah, was really dismantled in 70 AD, and then by the Bar Kokhba revolt in, I think, like 132, their history was over. So both groups, both houses, House of Judah and House of Israel, have been in diaspora, in scattering, in exile for basically, well, we've been in for, I think it's like 2,700 years, and Judah for a good almost 2,000. Okay, so that's another whole piece of the story you got to understand, okay? But the priestly Messiah for the Essenes is superior based on the order of seating as well as the order of blessing at the Messianic banquet. the Essenes believed that this would be the case in the Messianic age. So why is it? See, this is their understanding. How come all the focus went totally, it has, from Messiah ben David to this suffering servant, Messiah ben Joseph, who actually, and you can incorporate, and this is what happens. So really what happened is the priesthood, what Yeshua did, he kind of fulfilled two of these tracks, okay? The shepherd, the stone of Israel, there's so many ways that they say it, okay? And the priesthood were kind of both melded together on a track, doing a mission, getting out there to the Gentiles, saving all those people. So we need to understand that, okay? But one of the important things to understand now, because you got to keep these different, and that's why, basically, I was going to say they're both in blindness. This is my rub with the Jews. I mean, honestly, and I have to say that, come back to the camera. I want to say this to the camera, but what did you think? I mean, seriously, Judah, I'm talking to Judah. My brothers, I love you. Thank you for keeping the scribal tradition so that I have meat. I can eat meat at my table. But what did you think? Where did you think we went? I mean, didn't you? Because this is the rub. I said, where do you think these 10 tribes, where do you think we went? We didn't poof off the planet. We've been here. We've been multiplied. Let me tell you what. We got the birthright, a double portion. We've been multiplying like crazy. We're fulfilling the stars of the sky and the sands of the sea. I mean, this is my thing. How can you be, because of the rabbinic teachers you've been having, you've totally kind of written us out of the storyline, and you got to write us back in really quick. Just like we have to write you back in really quick. I mean, this is, I guess it goes, because we're in a war, and I understand the war and the casualty and all this stuff, but this is one of the most exciting things to happen. I'm sorry if we have totally messed up Yeshua, this Gentile Jesus. I mean, I feel for you. I get it. But we need each other. We're still in a war, more so today than ever before, and we need to understand each other's stories. Okay, and I apologize. I mean, I would love to be in groups and begin this whole, and it has been happening, the repentance, the washing of the water by the word, getting both of our minds clean and clear and thinking straight again. It's amazing. But, I mean, this is one thing. This is why you can say the early church was founded by the Essenes who got it. James the Just, the brother of Yeshua, how in the early church, the way it was formulated, I understand, but as this thing began to pick up steam again, it doesn't take long for the enemy to kind of figure out a strategy or a couple strategies to kind of derail things again, to kind of get in there and mucky the water. And so that happened. But we have got to begin to understand that he was after us. Messiah ben Joseph was all about us, okay? And you too, because so many of us, because history, oh my gosh, we don't understand who we are. We are the seed of Yah in all the earth. Abraham's seed, okay? There have been as many Jewish dispersions, scatterings, exiles, I don't care what you call them, going all the way back to the time of Moses, to the time of Aaron. I mean, where they have been going out, stories. During the time of Moses, there were whole groups, Dan, people just taking off and doing things, okay? This is all coming back as we keep reading in the literature and put it together. And this is why you will find the seed everywhere. It's in Egypt, it's in Africa, it's in India, it's in China, it's in Japan, it's in all over, in Ethiopia. But I have to say, but predominantly, and this is a fact, okay? While it is everywhere, okay, but because these are tribal, clanal people, because God was doing something, he kept a huge chunk of them. I mean, I've done teaching on this, and it's been true. And you know this, I'm still talking to you sort of, as you begin to bring people back from the whole world, so to speak, back to the land, we're not all going to fit there, and this never was the point. It's the earth is the Lord's. We're going to get the whole realm back, okay? Not a country the size of Rhode Island. But Malala, I mean, along the Silk Route, in Afghanistan and in Pakistan and in Indonesia and in all these places, they find pockets of Joseph, who's in their name. They're sons of Joseph, okay? So this is a reality. This is a fact. We didn't go anywhere. We've just been multiplying. We got hooked up with Messiah ben Joseph, who was saving our butt, renewing the covenant with us. And we got his name called Jesus, and it got a little Hellenized and then Roman. I mean, it got him. Okay, fine. And we're all trying to get back to center. We're all trying to center again. Oh my gosh. Anyways, this is an important thing I have to put out there too, because when they asked him, he was always under fun. They were, the rabbis and the Pharisees were constantly coming and asking him questions, trying to figure out, who is this guy? All right, who does he think he is? All right. During the trial, Jesus was asked by the Sanhedrin whether he thinks of himself as a Ben-Nash, as a son of man, who in Daniel will appear on the clouds. Okay, because there have been so many prophecies given. The questioner was clearly asking whether Jesus thought he was an eschatological Messiah. Okay, and it's clearly that the questioner was referring to Daniel. Now, the same thing Jesus was asking his disciples. He says, and he asked all his disciples. He didn't just ask Peter this. He asked all, who do men say that I am? Okay, and they would say, well, they think you're Elijah or John the Baptist or one of the prophets. Okay, what's really important to understand here, those weren't just guys they threw out. They just threw out the first prophet that came to their head, Jeremiah or Elijah. They were clearly stating eschatological, archetype Messiah figures, okay? We understand Elijah, because we know that the spirit of Elijah will come at the end of the age. I mean, John the Baptist was a type. This gets into some really deep stuff. Okay, but these are called, and this I have to say because it's so interesting, rainmakers. Okay, there's a whole tradition we've lost what a rainmaker is. Okay, they're asking Jesus, are you one of these rainmakers? Now, what does that mean? Okay, because Elijah and John the Baptist, Jeremiah, these people were known, and these messiahs were going to be rainmakers. In other words, these are people who had power over not only the celestial realms, over the terrestrial realms, but the celestial realms. So in other words, and this is why the two witnesses, the whole point is, these people, fire comes from their mouth, and think of the story of Elijah, and he could make it rain or not rain. There's a lot more significance packed into that we don't understand. Because these messiahs, these are not normal people that come on the scene and do these things. These are really incarnations, and I can't get into that. But the point is, they're asking Yeshua because he's out there doing stuff that is obviously saying this guy's is a little more tapped in. He's making the dead, he's raising the dead, he's healing the blind, he's walking on water, he's making loaves. This guy could be a rainmaker. And they're asking him, which one are you? Who are you? Who do you think you are? A Messiah ben David? A Messiah ben Joseph? And he said, I'm the king of the Jews. Okay, you say, well, I'm the king of the Jews. He does, okay? So there's a whole history to this. And what they're referring to is this incredible power that is going to be displayed at certain times, and they know this, okay? So that's why Jesus said, he said, why don't you just believe me because of the signs I'm doing? I'm obviously a rainmaker kind of guy here. Because there's a book out, with the rainmaker. And it really irritates me that they're so superficial today. They don't even, honey, okay, that could be a code word, because it's all an epithets and code words for James the Just in some of these players and stuff. I'm saying this, but even that the Gentile Christians can't even flush out the concept we're talking about, all right? Oh my gosh, there's just so much good meat. I'm going to go and I'm going to flush all this stuff out. I have to wrap this up pretty short now, pretty quick. But see, the thing about Yeshua, and this is what gets so exciting, it'll explain everything, because Paul says real quick, that this salvation that's going on, it's so much bigger than we ever. He says that at the end, everything on earth, under the earth, in the heavens, and in the seas, is going to confess that Jesus is Lord. And what it means is he is the the Yeshua. He is the pre-existent divine being, the anointed one, the Son of God, who was hidden in the presence of God from before creation, and he will be revealed, the one who's going to be revealed on that day to judge. And he appears in all his glory. He's coming up to do this really soon. And as I call him, I have to say King David, the Messiah ben David, and we're going to he's the kick-ass Messiah. So at this point, the gig is up. I'm telling you what. There's going to be nobody, no rule or authority is going to stand when this kick-ass Messiah shows up. So on that note, I will see you next week. Blessings. Messiah ben Joseph, Yahushua HaMashiach. You got to know the beauty of this thing. God has been performing his word. He performs it to a T. So on that note, I will see you. God bless and good night.